Agastya advises Sri Rama to perform Ashwamedha Yagya. Sri Rama requested sage Agastya to tell about the means by which he could become liberated from the sins of killing Brahmins. Sage Agastya advised him to perform Ashwamedha Yagya. He also described the rituals of performing Ashwamedha Yagya. Get a horse of white color and after worshipping it on Vashak Purnima leave it to wander freely. Tie a piece of paper on its forehead on which your name and other details are mentioned. Soldiers should follow that horse wherever it goes. You should fight a battle against any king who dares to stop the horse. You should lead a celibate life till the horse returns back to the same place from where it had been let loose. It is customary for the performer of Ashwamedha Yagya to indulge himself in benevolent deeds till the completion of Ashwamedha Yagya. Sri Rama agreed to perform Ashwamedha Yagya. He went to the seashore accompanied by numerous sages. He then cultivated a vast expanse of land with the help of a golden plough. A large oblation site was constructed and thus began Ashwamedha Yagya under the supervision of Vasishtha. The horse is let loose as per the advice of sage Vasishtha. Sri Rama instructed his soldiers to bring a white horse. A white parasol was fixed on its back and the horse was decorated with colorful clothes. The horse was then let loose and the faithful soldiers of Sri Rama followed it wherever the horse went. A gold sheet was hanged in the horse's neck and upon which was inscribed, "This horse belongs to Sri Rama, the son of Dasharatha. Anybody who dares to stop this horse will meet ruthless punishment." Shatrughan followed the horse as per the instruction of his elder brother, Sri Rama. Bharatha and Pushkal also accompanied him. A huge army led by Kalnemi was marching behind the horse. Love fastens the horse. Some of the kings tried to stop the horse, but were defeated by Shatrughan. This way the horse continued to move ahead without any problem till it reached the bank of river Ganga. It was early morning and Love, after noticing the presence of horse, became curious. He went near the horse and tried to read the inscription hanging down its neck. He made fun of the might of Sri Rama and fastened the horse. The soldiers tried to release the horse but Love severed their arms. They returned to Shatrughan and narrated the whole incident to him. Love vanquishes the whole army. Shatrughan became extremely furious after seeing the condition of his injured soldiers. He instructed Kalnemi to teach Love a lesson. Kalnemi confronted Love with a huge army and a ferocious battle took place. Love managed to kill Kalnemi, which created havoc in the rival's army. The surviving soldiers tried to hold their ground but were forced to flee on account of a fierce assault from Love. Shatrughan then ordered Pushkal to fight Love but he became unconscious after being hit by Love's arrow. Now, Shatrughan's anger crossed all limits and he ordered Hanuman to kill Love. Hanuman uprooted a large tree and tried to hit Love, but Love cut that tree into 100 pieces with a volley of arrows. Love then released many arrows in the direction of Hanuman. Hanuman fought valiantly but ultimately he fell down unconscious. Love becomes unconscious when Shatrughan learned about Hanuman's fate. He was infuriated and went to fight Love. But when he saw a tender-looking child in front of him he was surprised. Shatrughan asked, "O brave child, who are you? Who is your father?" But Love was not interested in his irrelevant queries and challenged him for a duel. Shatrughan was left with no other option but to fight. A tremendous battle was fought between them. Shatrughan released volleys of arrows towards Love but all of them were neutralized by him. For a brief time Shatrughan lost his consciousness. After regaining his consciousness, he aimed his most lethal weapon towards Love. The arrow hit Love and he fell down unconscious. Love's companions went and informed Sita about the whole incident. Kush came forward to fight against Sri Rama's army. When he reached the battlefield, he saw Love, who was held captive by the enemy's armies. By that time, Love had regained his consciousness, and after seeing Kush, he somehow managed to free himself from the clutches of his captors. Now, both the brothers launched a fierce attack on the enemy. The whole army of Sri Rama started running helter and skelter. It did not take much time for Love and Kush to vanquish the whole army. All the great warriors like Hanuman, Sugriva, Pushkal, Angad, Bhimani and even Shatrughan were either held captive or injured in the battle. Both the brothers fastened Hanuman and Sugriva with ropes and took them to Sita. Sita immediately recognized Hanuman and Sugriva. She instructed both her sons to set them free as well as the horse. Love and Kush followed the instruction of Sita and released everybody from their captivity. Sita then whispered, "May all the dead soldiers become alive." Her words came true and all the dead soldiers became alive once again. Shatrughan regained his consciousness too. The army returns to Ayodhya. Shatrughan decided to return to Ayodhya. He instructed Sumti to make all the necessary arrangements for the safe return of the caravan, which comprised not only of Sri Rama's army but also of all the defeated kings and their vanquished armies. When Sri Rama came to know about their arrival, he sent Lakshman to receive them. Lakshman received the victorious army with all the honor and all of them came to the palace. Sri Rama curiously asked Sumti about everything that had happened. Sumti paraded all the vanquished kings who had made the mistake of stopping the horse Sumad, Sabahu, Daman, Satyavan, Surat, etc. He then narrated the brave deed of Love and Kush. He also revealed how mighty warriors like Hanuman, Sugriva, Shatrughan etc. had been defeated by both of them. Sri Rama sends Lakshman to bring Sita. Sage Valmiki was present in Ayodhya to attend the Ashwamedha Yagya. Sri Rama asked him about the identity of the two children Love and Kush. Valmiki said, "Sita was pregnant at the time you had abandoned her. I gave her refuge in my hermitage where she gave birth to twins Love and Kush. Both the children were brought up in my hermitage with love and care. I taught them all the sacred texts and scriptures and made them masters of various weaponries. So, Love and Kush are your sons. You must bring Sita back to Ayodhya with due honor, because she is pure and chaste. Moreover, your whole army owe its life to her." Sri Rama's heart was filled with grief. He instructed Lakshman to bring Sita along with Love and Kush. Lakshman went to Valmiki's hermitage and requested Sita to return to Ayodhya. Sita refused to return but sent Love and Kush along with Lakshman. When Sri Rama found that only Love and Kush had come, he once again sent Lakshman to bring Sita. Lakshman followed his instruction and went to Valmiki's hermitage for the second time. Meanwhile, Valmiki instructed Love and Kush to sing the praise of Sri Rama in their melodious voice. Everybody was moved by their soulful rendition. Sri Rama took Love and Kush in his embrace. Sita returns to Ayodhya. Sri Rama eulogized all the revered sages who had arrived to attend the Ashwamedha Yagya. The holy water of Saryu was brought and sprinkled in the Yagya Kund where Ashwamedha Yagya was being performed, amidst the chanting of Vedic mantras. Hardly had Sri Rama touched the horse with his hands than it transformed into a human being. Everybody was amazed by this incident. Sri Rama asked that man as to how he had attained the form of a horse. The man revealed to the assembled people that he had become a horse due to Durvasa's curse. Later on, sage Durvasa had mercy on me and assured that I would regain my human form by the divine touch of Sri Rama. Having said this, the man attained to the heaven. In course of time, Sri Rama organized 2 more Ashwamedha Yagyas and his glory reverberated through all the 3 worlds. Ukta Kant Badrikashrama once, on being asked by the sages about the greatness of Badrikashrama, Sutha narrated the same tale, which Lord Shiva had once told sage Narada. Lord Mahadev had told Narada that altogether there were 125,000 mountains and Badrikashrama was supreme among them. Lord Mahadev said Badrikashrama is the abode of Lord Narayan. Narayan, the origin of all creations, has 4 arms and his complexion is dark. Narayan manifests himself in both forms, Sakar as well as Niraka. He is the eternal Purusha and is worshipped by people during the full period of Uttarayan. Since Badrikashrama is covered with snow during the period of Dakshinayan, Narayan is not worshipped during these 6 months. All the deities dwell at Badrikashrama. The sages live in their hermitages at Badrikashrama. River Alaknanda flows at Badrikashrama. Anybody taking a dip in the holy water of Alaknanda becomes liberated from his sins. The descent of river Ganga, describing about the reason why river Ganga was brought down on the earth. Lord Mahadev told Narada King Bhagirath was the architect of Ganga's arrival on the earth. He wanted to liberate his dead ancestors from the curse of sage Kapila. King Sagar came from the lineage of the famous King Harishchandra. Sagar had 2 queens. The elder queen had 60,000 sons while the younger queen had just 1 Panchajan. Panchajan's son was Anshuman, who himself was the father of Dilip. Dilip was the father of Bhagirath. Bhagirath did an austere penance on the Himalayas for 10,000 years. As a result, river Ganga descended on the earth. I, Shiva, held her in the locks of my hair and she remained there for 10,000 more years. Bhagirath requested me to release Ganga so that his ancestors could be liberated. I agreed to release Ganga and Bhagirath took her to the Pataloka where his ancestors had been charged to death due to Kapila's curse. Bhagirath sprinkled the water of Ganga on the ashes of his ancestors and each of them attained salvation as a result. Eventually, Ganga resurfaced at Haridwar, the most sacred place of pilgrimage. Dasharat pacifies Shani. Sage Narada curiously asked Lord Mahadev as to what made Shani such a volatile planet. Lord Mahadev replied, Shani is extremely violent by nature and everybody is scared of this planet. Once, the royal astrologer of Dasharat was petrified at the prospect of Shani entering the constellation of Rohini and warned him of its dire consequences. If the Shani is not prevented from entering Rohini, then famine would occur lasting for more than 12 years, said the royal astrologers. Dasharat went above the sky to subdue the might of Shani well armed with divine weapons. Shani became terrified on seeing Dasharat in such a menacing mood and expressed his willingness to fulfill his desires. Qualities of a Vaishnava. Giving a detailed description of the qualities of a Vaishnava, Lord Shiva told Narada a person who has total devotion in Lord Vishnu is called a Vaishnava. He is truthful, kind and forgiving by nature. He engages himself in austere penance and refrains from any kind of violence. He wears a tulsi bead in his neck and puts on tilak. He is well versed in sacred texts like the Vedas, Puranas, etc. The mere sight of a Vaishnava is enough to liberate a sinner from all his sins. Feeding a Vaishnava bestows virtue equivalent to feeding thousands of ordinary Brahmins. Indraprastha the sages inquired from Sutha about the holiest city situated on the banks of river Yamuna. Sutha narrated the tale which sage Subari had once told Yudhisthira once. Narada and Parvat were travelling through an aerial route. While they were flying over Kanda forest, they were lured by the beautiful sight of river Yamuna. They decided to take rest for a while. Both of them descended down and entered river Yamuna to take their bath. Meanwhile, King Shibi, who ruled over Ashinar, saw them. He eagerly waited at the bank of Yamuna. When Narada and Parvat emerged out of the Yamuna, they found King Shibi eagerly waiting for them. Meanwhile, King Shibi had noticed the remains of numerous Havan Kundas, oblation altars, spread in a large area. After the formal exchanges of pleasantries were over, King Shibi asked Narada about those Havan Kundas. Narada replied, during ancient times Indra had performed numerous yagas at this place to express his gratitude to Lord Vishnu, with whose blessings he had regained the heaven from the clutches of Hiranyakashipu. In course of time, this place became famous as Indraprastha. This sacrosanct place is holier than all the holy places combined together. Indraprastha is spread in the area of 1 yojan from east to west and 4 yojans from north to south. Vaikuntha, abode of Lord Vishnu. Describing about the grandeur of Vaikuntha, Lord Shiva told Parvati, a person who has total devotion in Vishnu attains to Vaikuntha after his death. Vaikuntha is the abode of Vishnu and constitutes of numerous janpadas. The magnificence of Vaikuntha is beyond description, and it houses many grand palaces fully decorated with jewels and diamonds. The central part of Vaikuntha is called Ayodhya and is well protected by Dwapals named Chanda, Prachanda, Bhadra, Subhadra, Jaya, Vijay, Datta and Vidhata. Vaikuntha is inhabited by countless divine people who live in well-illuminated houses. In the central part of Ayodhya is situated the Antapuri of Lord Vishnu. It is inhabited by celestial beauties Apsaras. There is a divine canopy situated just at the center of Antapuri, where Lord Vishnu has his divine throne. The divine throne is surrounded by deities as well as by the embodiments of all the 4 Vedas: Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharvaveda. The deities Agni, Surya and Chandrama have their dwellings at the center of Vishnu's throne. There is a grand pedestal called Yogpith established on the throne. A beautiful lotus flower is established on the Yogpith, on which is seated Lord Vishnu along with his consort Lakshmi. Lord Vishnu appears divine in his complexion of a blue lotus, whose radiance is enough to subdue crores of sun. He has radiant earrings hanging down his earlobes. His forehead is covered with curly hair. He has the famous Kaustubh Mani in his neck. He holds a conch and a chakra in each of his 2 hands, and the remaining 2 hands are in the posture of giving blessings. The incarnations of Matsya and Kurma once, Goddess Parvati expressed her desire to know about all the incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Lord Mahadev replied, Lord Brahma had created numerous Prajapatis like Bhrigu, Marichi, Atri, Daksha, Kadam, Pulastya, Pulaha, Angira and Kratu. Marichi was the father of Kashyapa. Sage Kashyapa had 4 wives: Aditi, Diti, Kadru and Vinta. Aditi was the mother of deities, while Diti gave birth to demons like Maka, Hayagriva, Mahabali, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Jamba, Maya etc. Maka was a mighty demon, who after deceitfully acquiring the Vedas from Lord Brahma had hidden himself inside an ocean. Lord Brahma requested Vishnu to liberate the sacred Vedas from the possession of Maka. Lord Vishnu then took the incarnation of Matsya and after killing Maka gave back the Vedas to Lord Brahma. Durvasa was the son of sage Atri. Once, he went to Indraloka to see Indra. At that time, Indra was planning to go out somewhere. Durvasa presented a garland of Parijat flowers to Indra. Indra, after receiving the garland from Durvasa, kept it carelessly on the forehead of his elephant Airavat. This garland was trampled under its feet by the elephant, which infuriated Durvasa. He cursed Indra by saying, "Immense prosperity has made you arrogant. But you will become a pauper within a very short time." Durvasa's words came to be true, and Indra found that not only the heaven but all the three worlds had become bereft of goddess Lakshmi. Prosperity vanished and poverty prevailed everywhere. The deities became worried and went to take the help of Brahma. Brahma took the deities to Lord Vishnu. Vishnu became pleased with their eulogy and said, "I will take incarnation as Kurma. If the ocean were churned with the help of Mandarachal mountain and Vasuki, then goddess Lakshmi would manifest herself. I shall hold the Mandarachal mountain on my back." This way the churning of ocean commenced. The Mandarachal mountain was uprooted and placed inside the Kshirosagar, and which rested on the back of Lord Kurma. The serpent Vasuki was held by deities and demons on both the ends. First of all, the most venomous poison Kalkut emerged from the ocean. Seeing both the deities and demons unwilling to accept it, Lord Shiva drank it. After the emergence of Kalkut, goddess Daridra and Varuna manifested themselves. Similarly, Airavat elephant, Uchchashrava horse, Dhanvantari, Surgi cow and Parijat tree emerged from the ocean. Ultimately, goddess Lakshmi manifested herself. The deities requested her to dwell in the heart of Lord Vishnu and bless all the three worlds by her presence. Goddess Lakshmi agreed and blessed them. NRI Simha incarnation. Continuing with the various incarnations of Lord Vishnu, Lord Mahadev told Parvati sage Kashyapa had two mighty sons from Diti, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha had once carried the earth to Rasatla. The deities requested Lord Vishnu to rescue the earth. Lord Vishnu took the incarnation of a boar and killed Hiranyaksha with his sharp horn. When Hiranyakshipu learned about his brother's death, he went to Merugiri mountain and started doing penance to please me, Lord Shiva. I blessed him with immortality. Later on, Hiranyakashipu married Uttanpad's daughter Kalyani and had a son named Prahlad from her. In spite of being born in the clan of a demon, Prahlad proved to be an extremely religious child and was a supreme devotee of Lord Vishnu. When Hiranyakshipu came to know about Prahlad's religious tendency, he tried his best to stop him from worshipping Vishnu. But all his efforts went in vain and Prahlad continued to worship Lord Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu instructed his subordinates to kill Prahlad, but each time he came out unharmed. One day, Hiranyakashipu pulled out his sword and said, "You say that Vishnu is omnipresent. Is he present in this pillar?" Having said like this, he assaulted the pillar with his sword. Suddenly, to his sheer amazement, Lord Vishnu manifested himself from that pillar in the form of Narasimha Simha. Hiranyakashipu had been blessed by Lord Shiva that he could be killed neither by a man nor a beast. No weapon could harm him. He could be killed neither during the day nor during the night. Hiranyakashipu had taken into consideration all the possible threat perceptions to his life and tried to become immortal. But Lord Vishnu takes incarnation to protect the humanity whenever religiousness is under threat. This time, Lord Vishnu took incarnation as Narasimha, partly lion and partly human, and tore apart his belly with his sharp nails. After the death of Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad was coronated as his successor. Prahlad ruled justly and his subjects were happy and satisfied. Woman incarnation. Continuing with the various incarnations of Lord Vishnu, Lord Mahadev told Parvati Prahlad had a son named Virochan. The most benevolent king Mahabahubali was Virochan's son. Bali had defeated the deities and ruled over all the three worlds. Sage Kashyapa commenced the most austere penance Payovrata to help the deities regain their lost kingdom, heaven, once again. He was accompanied by his wife Aditi in his penance, which lasted for 1000 years. At last, Lord Vishnu became pleased by their penance and appeared before them. Sage Kashyapa narrated the woeful tales of the deities and requested him to make Indra the lord of all the three worlds. Lord Vishnu promised that he would take incarnation as Vaman. In course of time, Aditi became pregnant and ultimately gave birth to Lord Vaman. Lord Vaman appeared in the form of a brahmachari. He wore a deerskin and carried a stick and a mekla in both his hands. Lord Vishnu inquired the deities about the future course of action. The deities informed him that Bali was busy performing a yajna and he would not turn down any demand made to him, because if he did so there was a fear of losing all his virtues attained by the performance of the yajna. Lord Vaman went to the oblation site where Bali was performing a yajna and demanded a small piece of land measured by his 3 steps. Bali agreed to meet the demand of his guest in spite of Shukracharya's warning. Bali resolved to donate land by holding holy water in his palm. Now, Lord Vaman abandoned his dwarfish form and appeared in a giant form. He measured the whole earth by his first step. Lord Vishnu then measured the whole sky by his second step. The helpless Bali agreed to donate all the 3 worlds to protect his vow. Ultimately, Lord Vishnu sent Bali to the Rasatla and thus Indra became the ruler of heaven once again. Shri Rama's birth. Describing about Shri Rama's incarnation, Lord Mahadev told Parvati once, Swayambhuva Manu had expressed his desire of having Lord Vishnu as his son, to which Lord Vishnu had agreed. During Treta Yuga, Manu manifested himself as the Sharath and Vishnu kept his promise by taking birth as his son Shri Rama. Similarly, during Dwapar Yuga, Manu was born as Vasudev and Lord Vishnu kept his word by taking birth as his son Krishna. After the completion of 1000 divine years, Manu will be born in the village of Sambal as Harigupta and Vishnu will take birth as his son Kalki. Lord Shiva then continued with the incarnation of Shri Rama and said sage Vishrava was the son of Pulasya and was married to Kekashi. Ravana and Kumbhakarna were born to the couple. Sage Vishrava also had a daughter named Shurpankhah and a virtuous son named Vibhishan. Ravana and Kumbhakarna did austere penance to please me, Lord Shiva. When I appeared before Ravana, he requested the boon of immortality from me. After receiving the boon, Ravana became very arrogant and started tormenting the inhabitants of all the 3 worlds. The deities became scared and took the refuge of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu assured them that he would solve their problem by taking incarnation as Shri Rama. The Sharath came from the lineage of Surya. He had 3 queens, Kausalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi. Once, the Sharath performed a Vaishnav Yajna with the objective of acquiring a son. Lord Vishnu appeared and assured him that he would take incarnation as Shri Rama in a short time. Lord Vishnu gave a bowl of divine kheer to the Sharath, which he distributed amongst his 3 queens. In course of time, Kausalya gave birth to Shri Rama on the auspicious day of Chakranavami. The deities and the sages rejoiced at his birth. Shri Rama grows up. Continuing with the tale of Shri Rama, Lord Mahadev told Parvati the Sharath requested Vasishtha to perform the Jatkam Sanskar of Shri Rama. In course of time, Kaikeyi gave birth to Bharata, an incarnation of Panchajanya Conch. Similarly, Sumitra gave birth to two sons Lakshman and Shatrughan. Lakshman was the incarnation of Sheshnag while Shatrughan was the incarnation of Sudarshan Chakra. Sri Rama and his brothers received education under the guidance of sage Vasishtha. In a very short time they became proficient in all the scriptures and mastered various weaponaries. Although all the four brothers were very close to each other, yet Lakshman could not bear to live in Rama's separation even for a moment and was specially close to him. Sita manifested herself from the field while Janaka was ploughing it. King Janaka brought up Sita with great love and care. At that time, Vishwamitra was busy performing a grand yagya at Siddha Ashrama. But the demons created numerous problems and made it impossible for him to accomplish the yagya. Vishwamitra went to Ayodhya and requested Dasharatha to send Sri Rama and Lakshman along with him so that the yagya could be accomplished without any problems. Dasharatha agreed to send Sri Rama and Lakshman along with Vishwamitra. This way, Vishwamitra returned to his hermitage accompanied by both the brothers. Garuda presented a pair of bow and imperishable set of arrows to both the brothers. While staying at the hermitage, Sri Rama and Lakshman killed many demons like Tharaka and Sabahu. When Marik tried to disrupt the yagya, Sri Rama attacked him with Pavanastra, which sent Marik flying across the seashore. Meanwhile, on learning that Janaka was performing Vajapayal yagya at Jankapur, Vishwamitra took Sri Rama and Lakshman to attend it. On the way, Sri Rama liberated Ahalya, who had turned into a rock after being cursed by her husband. After reaching Jankapur, Sri Rama broke Lord Shiva's bow and married Sita. Lakshman married Urmila. Dasharatha had come to attend the marriage ceremony accompanied by Bharatha and Shatrughan. Bharatha was married to Mandavi while Shatrughan married Shrutkirti. Meanwhile, on learning that Sri Rama had broken Shiva's bow, Parshurama arrived there and challenged him, but ultimately Parshuram realized about the divinity of Sri Rama and accepted his superiority. At last, Sri Rama, Lakshman, Bharatha and Shatrughan returned to Ayodhya along with their respective consorts. Sri Rama's exile. Lord Mahadev continued with the tale of Sri Rama and told Parvati Dasharatha wanted to appoint Sri Rama as his successor, but Kaikeyi did not like this idea. She wanted Bharatha to be made the king of Ayodhya and Sri Rama to be sent into exile for 14 years. Once, Kaikeyi had saved Dasharatha's life while he was fighting a battle against the demons. To show his gratitude, Dasharatha had promised 2 boons to her. At that time, Kaikeyi had told Dasharatha that she would make her demand at the appropriate time. This way, Dasharatha was compelled by Kaikeyi to accept the 2 demands. As a result, Sri Rama was sent into exile. Bharatha refused to become the king of Ayodhya and vowed to wait till Sri Rama returned. Dasharatha could not bear the sorrow of Rama's separation and died in his sorrow. Bharatha tried his best to convince Sri Rama to change his mind and accept the throne, but Sri Rama did not listen to his request. Bharatha then brought Sri Rama's wooden sandal and kept it on the throne. He vowed to spend rest of his life in austerities till Sri Rama returned. While Sri Rama was still in exile, he went to the hermitage of sage Atri and received his blessings. Atri's wife Ansuya preached Sita on the virtues of chastity. Sri Rama also visited hermitages of some other prominent sages like Shavanga, Sutiksha, Agastya, etc. Once, while Sri Rama was living in Panchavati, Shurpankhah arrived there. Shurpankhah was Ravana's sister and wanted to marry Sri Rama, but Lakshman severed her nose and ears. She went to a mighty demon named Ka and narrated her woeful tale. Ka attacked Rama with a huge army, which comprised of brave warriors like Trishira, Dushan, etc. Rama was victorious in this battle and Trishira and Dushan were killed. Shurpankhar went to Ravana and informed him about the misdeeds of Rama. Ravana was infuriated and wanted to take revenge. He abducted Sita with the help of Marik. When Jatayu saw Ravana carrying Sita to Lanka, he fought with valiance but was injured in the ensuing battle. Sri Rama went in search of Sita and met Jatayu, who was injured and who informed Rama that Sita had been abducted by the demon king Ravana. Sri Rama met Hanuman at the Rishyamukh mountain. Later on he befriended Sugriva on the advice of Hanuman. Sugriva had enmity with his brother Bali. Sri Rama killed Bali and made Sugriva the king. Sri Rama requested Hanuman to find out the whereabouts of Sita. Hanuman went to Lanka and found Sita at Ashoka Vatika. He destroyed the garden and killed many demons including Ravana's son Akshay Kumar. Ultimately, he was captured by Meghnad and taken to Ravana's court. Ravana ordered Hanuman's tail to be ignited. Hanuman then burnt the city of Lanka and returned to Sri Rama. When Sri Rama came to know about the exact location of Sita, he decided to attack Lanka with a huge army, which comprised of monkeys. The army camped at the seashore where Vibhishan came to meet him. A bridge was built across the ocean and the army reached Lanka. A fierce battle took place in which many demons were killed. At last, Ravana came forward to fight against Sri Rama but was killed. Sri Rama appointed Vibhishan as the king of Lanka and blessed him. Vibhishan presented his Pushpak Vimana to Sri Rama. All of them boarded the Pushpak Vimana and flew towards Ayodhya. On the way Sri Rama met Bharata, who was still awaiting his arrival at Nandigram. Sri Rama was very pleased to meet Bharata. Ultimately all of them returned to Ayodhya. Sri Rama's coronation. Describing the coronation of Sri Rama, Lord Mahadev told Parvati, people of Ayodhya rejoiced at the return of Sri Rama. An auspicious day was chosen for his coronation and Sri Rama became the king of Ayodhya amidst the chantings of Vedic mantras. Sri Rama ruled over Ayodhya for 1000 years without any problem. Meanwhile, some ignorant people started pointing out fingers at the character of Sita. Sri Rama decided to abandon Sita in the forest to quell the rumor. Sita was pregnant at that time. Feeling pity on her condition, Valmiki took her to his hermitage where Sita gave birth to Lava and Kush. Meanwhile Sri Rama decided to perform Ashwamedha Yagya at the bank of river Gomti. But, since the Yagya could not have been accomplished without Sita, therefore he performed the rituals seated beside a golden idol of Sita. In the meantime Valmiki arrived there, accompanied by Sita. He requested Sri Rama to accept Sita, vouching for her chastity. Sri Rama told Valmiki, I am confident of Sita's chastity, but she will have to prove her chastity for the satisfaction of common people. Sita was deeply hurt by Sri Rama's unkind remarks. She said, may Mother Earth swallow me if I ever had thought about any man other than my Lord Sri Rama. Hardly had Sita finished her lines than the earth cracked and Sita vanished into that crevice. Sri Rama's heart was filled with remorse, but thinking that it was perhaps in his destiny to live in separation with Sita, returned to Ayodhya accompanied by Lava and Kush. In course of time, Kausalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi left for heavenly abode. Sri Rama continued to rule Ayodhya for 10,000 more years. One day, Kala, death, arrived and reminded Sri Rama that the time had arrived for him to leave his mortal body. Meanwhile Lakshman became aware of Sri Rama's decision of leaving his mortal body. He gave up his life by taking samadhi in river Saryu. Sri Rama could not bear the sorrow caused by Lakshman's bereavement. He appointed Lava and Kush as the kings of Dwaravati and Kushvati respectively and decided to leave for heavenly abode. Sri Rama entered the water of river Saryu, flowing at the distance of 3 yojans from Ayodhya. Sri Krishna Parvati requested Lord Mahadev to narrate the divine tales of Vasudeva Krishna. Lord Mahadev replied Vasudeva was the descendant of Yadu. His father was Devamidha. He was married to Devaki, the daughter of Ugrasena. Ugrasena also had a mighty son named Kansa. Kansa was extremely affectionate towards his sister Devaki. After her marriage, while Devaki was going to her husband's house on a chariot being driven by Kansa, suddenly a heavenly voice was heard. Kansa, you would meet death at the hands of Devaki's 8th son. Kansa became very scared and wanted to kill his sister then and there. But Vasudeva requested Kansa to spare Devaki's life and promised to hand over any child that she gave birth to. Thus Kansa imprisoned both Vasudeva and Devaki. In course of time, Devaki gave birth to 7 sons and Kansa killed each of them. Lord Sri Hari manifested himself when Devaki conceived for the 8th time. It was the month of Shravana and the day was Krishnashtami, when Sri Hari took his incarnation at midnight. Soon after taking his incarnation he gave a glimpse of his divine form to Vasudeva and Devaki. On the instruction of Sri Hari, Vasudeva carried the infant to Nand's house. He had no problem in moving out of the prison as all the guards had fallen asleep due to the illusion of Sri Hari. On seeing the swift currents of overflooded Yamuna, Vasudeva became worried. But the level of river Yamuna receded as soon as Sri Krishna touched the river with his feet. Sheshnag protected Sri Krishna from heavy rain with his 1,000 hoods. When Vasudeva reached Nand's house he found that Nand's wife Yashoda had given birth to a baby girl. Yashoda was sleeping at that time and Vasudeva had no problem in exchanging Sri Krishna with that baby girl. Vasudeva then returned to the prison and laid down the baby girl beside Devaki. The baby girl started crying and the guards immediately woke up. They informed Kansa about the birth of Devaki's 8th child. Kansa tried to kill that baby girl by smashing her head, but she escaped from his hands and flew up in the sky. She thundered, "Your death is certain as your assassin has already taken birth." Kansa was terrified at the prospect of his death. He instructed his soldiers to kill all the infants wherever they were to be found in his kingdom. He also ordered the release of Vasudeva and Devaki, as there was no point keeping them in captivity. Meanwhile, Sri Krishna grew up under the guardianship of Nand and Yashoda. One day Kansa sent a wicked ogress named Putna to kill Sri Krishna. Putna had applied poison on her breasts and tried to kill Krishna by breastfeeding him. Sri Krishna sucked her breast with such ferocity that she died. Thus, Sri Krishna gave the first glimpse of his divinity to the inhabitants of Vajra. Sri Krishna accomplished many such divine deeds during his childhood. He grew up to be a mischievous child and used to play numerous pranks on the fellow gopis. He used to steal their butter and curd. One day, all the gopis complained to Yashoda about Sri Krishna's misdeeds. Yashoda became angry and tied him with a wooden mortar in order to prevent him from troubling the gopis. She then placed that mortar between 2 trees so that Krishna could not move. But Sri Krishna toddled away, uprooting both the huge trees. Once, a demon named Baksur disguised himself as a huge heron and tried to kill Sri Krishna. But Sri Krishna hit him with a stone with such force that he met an instant death. This way Sri Krishna had killed many ferocious demons while he was still a small child. Some of them Valkalia the serpent etc., Dhanuksur, Arisht, Keshi etc. A significant incident had occurred during Krishna's childhood. People of Vraja were devotees of Indra and used to worship him. Sri Krishna stopped this tradition and encouraged people to worship Govardhan mountain. Indra became extremely furious and caused incessant rain for 1 week. Sri Krishna protected the people by lifting Govardhan mountain and shielding them from the continuous downpour. At last, Indra accepted defeat and eulogized Sri Krishna. Killing of Kansa. Continuing with the divine tales of Sri Krishna, Lord Mahadev told Parvati when Kansa failed in his repeated attempts to kill Sri Krishna, he instructed Akrura to invite both Krishna and Balram to Mathura on the pretext of attending a ceremony called Dhanushyaga. Kansa had planned to kill Sri Krishna by deceitful means. Akrura was a great devotee of Sri Krishna and was aware of Kansa's evil intentions. But he had no other option but to follow the command of his master Kansa. So, Akrura went to Vraja where Sri Krishna and Balram used to live. Sri Krishna and Balram were delighted to meet Akrura. After the formal exchange of pleasantries, Krishna took Akrura to his home. Akrura conveyed the instructions of Kansa to Nanda and requested him to send both Sri Krishna and Balram to Mathura. Akrura said Sri Krishna is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu and Kansa will be killed by him. Nanda and Yashoda were reluctant to send Sri Krishna to Mathura, but Sri Krishna convinced them. Ultimately, Akrura returned to Mathura accompanied by Krishna and Balram. The people of Vraja became sad when the time for Krishna's departure to Mathura arrived. When Akrura reached Mathura accompanied by Sri Krishna and Balram, it was already evening. Sri Krishna saw a dyer with colorful apparels going towards Kansa's palace. Sri Krishna playfully demanded some set of clothes from that dyer which he refused to give. Sri Krishna was infuriated and slapped him so hard that he started vomiting blood. In a short time the dyer was dead. Sri Krishna and Balram chose some beautiful set of clothes for themselves and proceeded towards the palace of Kansa. After some time they met a crooked woman carrying sandalwood paste. Sri Krishna demanded some sandalwood paste from her, which she gave without any hesitation. Sri Krishna blessed that crooked woman, as a result of which she was cured of her physical deformity. At last, both Sri Krishna and Balram reached the oblation site where Dhanushyaga was supposed to be performed. Sri Krishna lifted the divine bow kept there and broke it into 2 pieces. When Kansa learned that the divine bow had been broken, he ordered Chanur to kill Krishna in a wrestling bout. Kansa also fortified his palace by positioning wild elephants and mighty warriors at all the entrance points. Sri Krishna and Balram spent the night at the oblation site. In the morning both of them proceeded towards the palace. Sri Krishna found an elephant named Kuvalyapida standing at the main entrance of the palace. He killed that ferocious elephant without much difficulty. Sri Krishna and Balram then entered the gymnasium where wrestling bouts were supposed to take place. All the demons, those who had witnessed Sri Krishna killing that huge elephant without any problem, became terrified and fled away from the gymnasium. Sri Krishna and Balram entered the chamber of Kansa. Kansa became terrified and ordered his trusted lion tenants Chanur and Mushtik to kill Krishna. Chanur confronted Sri Krishna while Mushtik fought a duel with Balram. Ultimately, both the demons were killed after a fierce duel. Now, Kansa was left all alone. Sri Krishna pulled Kansa from the throne where he was sitting and slapped him so hard that he fell down on the ground. The injury proved to be fatal and as a result Kansa died. Balram also killed Kansa's younger brother whose name was Sunama. After killing Kansa, Krishna and Balram went to meet their parents Vasudev and Devaki. They also freed their maternal grandfather Ugrasena who had been imprisoned by Kansa. At last they appointed Ugrasena as the king of Mathura. Jasant was the father-in-law of Kansa. When he learned about Kansa, death he surrounded Mathura with a huge army. Shri Krishna was well aware of Jasanda's might and bravery. He was also convinced that it would not be easy to defeat Jasant. So, he remembered Daruk his eternal charioteer and sought his help. Daruk appeared with a divine chariot named Sugriva Pushpak. The chariot was well armed with all the divine weapons of Lord Vishnu. Shri Krishna and Balram then entered the battlefield mounted on that divine chariot. A fierce battle was fought between Shri Krishna and Jasanda's army. Jasant covered Krishna's chariot with his various weapons, but Shri Krishna destroyed them with his chakra. Shri Krishna then destroyed Jasanda's army by showering volley of arrows from his famous bow Sharan. Seeing the death and destruction in his army, Jasant came forward to fight Balram. Balram attacked Jasant with his dangerous weapon Hala, plough, and destroyed his chariot. Jasant fell down on the ground, and as Balram was about to kill him, Shri Krishna requested Balram not to kill Jasant. After being defeated, Jasant sought the help of Kalyan, who had a large army. Kalyavan agreed to help Jasant and surrounded Mathura with his army. Realizing that Mathura was no longer a safe place to live, Shri Krishna shifted the whole population of Mathura to Dwarka and went to fight Kalyavan. The battle continued for a long period, and after realizing that it was not easy to defeat his enemy, Shri Krishna ran towards the cave where Mukund had been sleeping since many past eras. Mukund was blessed with a boon according to which any person upon whom he put his glance after waking from his sleep would die. Krishna hid himself behind Mukund. Kalyavan, who was chasing Krishna, entered the cave and kicked Mukund. Mukund opened his eyes and saw Kalyavan. Kalyavan was burned to ashes. This way, Shri Krishna was able to defeat his powerful enemy by his cleverness. Abduction of Rukmini. Lord Mahadev told Parvati when Jasant learned about Kalyavan's death, he attacked Balram to avenge his friend's death. But, very soon he realized that it was beyond his capacity to defeat Balram, so he retreated along with his army. Shri Krishna and Balram returned to Dwarka. In course of time, Balram married Revati, the daughter of Ravat. At that time, there ruled a king named Bhismak. He ruled over Vidarbha. He had a beautiful daughter named Rukmini. He also had many sons, among whom Rukmi was prominent. Rukmi wanted Rumini to get married to Shishupal much against her wishes. Rukmini, being an incarnation of goddess Lakshmi, rightly wanted to have Shri Krishna as her husband. Rukmini sent a message to Shri Krishna about her brother's intention. Shri Krishna went to help her, accompanied by Balram. Shri Krishna reached Vidarbha on the same day. Rukmini was supposed to marry Shishupal and abducted her to Dwarka. Jasant and Rukmi chased Krishna's chariot, but Balram defeated Jasant while Shri Krishna fastened Rukmi with the chariot. Shri Krishna also shaved off Rukmi's hair, which filled him with so much of shame that he decided not to return to Vidarbha. After reaching Dwarka, Shri Krishna married Rukmini on an auspicious day. Shri Krishna's queens. Continuing with the divine tales of Shri Krishna, Lord Mahadev told Parvati Shri Krishna had 16,000 queens, among whom Satyabhama, Kalindi, Mitravinda, etc. were prominent. King Satyajit had a priceless diamond named Syamantak, which he had presented to his younger brother Prasenna. Sri Krishna was fascinated by that diamond and demanded it from Prasenna, which he refused to part with. One day, Sri Krishna along with Prasenna and other Yadvas went into the forest for hunting. While chasing a deer, Prasenna seceded from his group and was killed by a lion. The lion took the diamond and started playing with it. Incidentally, Jambavan, who had once fought along with Sri Rama against Ravana, saw the lion playing with the diamond. He killed that lion and took the diamond in his possession. When Sri Krishna returned to Dwarka, he was surprised by a strange rumor, which pervaded the whole city. Some people suspected that Sri Krishna had killed Prasenna for the diamond. Sri Krishna was very much disturbed by this baseless rumor. To clear the doubts, he went into the forest accompanied by all the residents of Dwarka and showed the dead body of Prasenna, which was still lying there. When people saw the mutilated corpse of Prasenna, which bore marks of the lion's claws and canines, they became convinced of Sri Krishna's innocence. While returning back to Dwarka, Sri Krishna saw an effulgent cave. Sri Krishna was very surprised and wanted to find out the source of light. He entered the cave and saw Prasenna's diamond hanging on top of a cradle, in which a child was lying. A woman was singing a lullaby so that the child falls asleep. The lion killed Prasenna while Jambavan killed the lion and acquired this diamond from its possession. O child! Don't cry, as this priceless diamond belongs to your father. Sri Krishna furiously blew his conch. Jambavan came out from the cave after listening to the sound of the conch. A fierce duel took place between them, which continued for 10 days. At last, Jambavan realized that the person against whom he was fighting was none other than Sri Rama himself. Jambavan then gave his daughter Jambavati to Krishna in marriage and gave lot of wealth as dowry, including that Syamantak, diamond. Bhadraraj had 3 daughters, Sulakshmana, Nagnajiti and Sushila. Sri Krishna had married all 3 of them in a Swayamvara. This way, Sri Krishna had altogether 8 prominent queen consorts: Rukmini, Satyabhama, Kalindi, Mitravinda, Jambavati, Nagnajiti, Sulakshmana and Sushila. There lived a mighty demon named Narkasur. He had defeated the deities and snatched the divine earrings of Aditi, the mother of deities. He had created an aerial city in which he lived along with other demons. The deities went to Sri Krishna and sought his help. Sri Krishna flew up in the sky mounted on the back of Garuda. Satyabhama was also accompanying him. Sri Krishna was amazed to see the well-fortified palace of Narkasur. When the demons saw Sri Krishna, they attacked him, but Sri Krishna challenged them by blowing his conch. Narkasur came forward to fight Sri Krishna. A fierce battle took place in which Sri Krishna broke Narkasur's bow with his arrows. Ultimately, Sri Krishna was successful in killing Narkasur. Sri Krishna then returned the whole wealth to the deities, which Narkasur had looted from them. He also liberated 16,000 women whom Narkasur had imprisoned. After being liberated, all the women accepted Sri Krishna as their husband. Anirudh marries Usha. Lord Mahadev continued with the divine tales of Sri Krishna o Parvati. Sri Krishna had a son from Rukmini whose name was Aniruddha. Aniruddha was very brave and had killed a demon named Shambasur. There is an interesting tale how Aniruddha married Usha. Once, Usha, the daughter of Banasur, saw a very handsome young man in her dreams. She was so infatuated by his handsome personality that she developed a deep desire of marrying him. When she woke up next morning, she expressed her desire to her companion Chitralekha. Chitralekha was an accomplished painter. She drew a sketch of a handsome man as per the descriptions of Usha. When the painting was ready, Chitralekha revealed to Usha that the person who she had seen in her dream was none other than Aniruddha. Chitralekha had divine powers. She went to Dwarka and abducted Aniruddha while he was asleep. She then carried Aniruddha and laid him on the bed of Usha. When Usha woke up, she was thrilled to see the man of her dreams. Aniruddha remained there for many days without Banasur being aware of his presence. One day, Banasur came to know about Aniruddha's presence. He became furious and imprisoned Aniruddha. Sage Narada informed Sri Krishna about Aniruddha's imprisonment. Sri Krishna went to fight a battle against Banasur and release Aniruddha from his imprisonment. Although Sri Krishna was leading a large army and was accompanied by mighty warriors like Baldeva and Pradyumna, yet he was aware that it was not easy to fight Banasur, who had 1,000 arms and whom Lord Shiva had vowed to protect. A fierce battle commenced between the armies of Sri Krishna and Lord Shiva. The battle remained indecisive for a long time. Meanwhile, Banasur came forward to fight against Sri Krishna. Very soon Sri Krishna severed all the 1,000 hands of Banasur with his chakra. Lord Shiva then requested Sri Krishna to spare Banasur's life and said, "Banasur has received the boon of immortality from me. Now, only you can protect the dignity of my boon given to him." Sri Krishna spared Banasur's life. Banasur then agreed to marry his daughter to Aniruddha. This way Aniruddha married Usha with great fanfare. The decline of Yadur dynasty. Parvati was listening to the divine tales of Sri Krishna with rapt attention. Lord Mahadev told Parvati, "Poundrak was the king of Kashi. He did an austere penance for 12 years to please me. When I appeared before him, he requested me to make his appearance look like Sri Krishna. I blessed him with an appearance similar to that of Sri Krishna. People became confused as to who the real Krishna was. One day, Narada arrived at Kashi and castigated Poundrak by saying that his intention of befooling people would not meet success as long as real Krishna was alive. Poundrak went to Dwarka with a large army and challenged Sri Krishna for a duel. Sri Krishna severed the impersonator's head with his chakra. Meanwhile, Jasant continued to torment the Yadvas. Sri Krishna decided to settle the matter for once and all. He advised Bhima to challenge Jasant for a wrestling bout. Jasant and Bhima fought valiantly for 27 days. While both of them were fighting, Sri Krishna signaled Bhima to tear apart Jasanta's thighs. After the killing of Jasant, Sri Krishna released all the kings who had been imprisoned by him. After the great war of Mahabharata had ended, Yudhishthira decided to perform a Rajasuya at Indraprasth. Sri Krishna also went there to bless the Pandavas. Shishupal was also present at the ceremony. He had an old grudge against Sri Krishna and started abusing him. Initially Krishna tried to overlook his abuses, but when situation went beyond repair, Sri Krishna severed his head with his chakra. Dantavakra attacked Mathura to avenge the death of Shishupal. A long battle was fought at the bank of river Yamuna, which continued for many days. Ultimately, Sri Krishna was successful in killing Dantavakra with his make. There was a childhood friend of Sri Krishna whose name was Sudama. He was a poor Brahman. Once, he went to meet Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna, being an incarnation of the Almighty, immediately understood the precarious situation his poor friend was living in. He blessed Sudama, as a result of which he got rid of his poverty and became prosperous. Sri Krishna had 1 crore sons from his 16,000 queens. Pradyumna was his eldest son. The Yadvas dominated the whole earth and had become arrogant after being intoxicated by their power. There is an interesting tale how this powerful Yadva dynasty met their downfall once. Some young Yadvas played a prank with sage Kamban, which caused the downfall of the Yadvas. One day, some Yadva children went at the bank of river Narmada where sage Kamban was doing penance. Samba was one of those Yadva children. He disguised himself as a pregnant woman by keeping a pestle under his clothes. All the Yadva children then went near sage Kamban and asked him as to when was the pregnant woman supposed to deliver a child. Sage Kamban furiously cursed them that the whole clan of Yadvas would be liquidated because of that very pestle. All the children were scared and told Sri Krishna about the mistake they had made. Sri Krishna ordered that the iron pestle be crushed to powder and be thrown into a pond. But that was not the end of the matter, as long reeds grew all around the pond. The reeds had very sharp edges. A fish swallowed a small part of that iron pestle and was subsequently caught by a fowler, who retrieved that iron piece from the fish and fixed it on the top of his arrow. In course of time all the Yadvas developed enmity among themselves and killed each other with those sharp-edged reeds. Once, Sri Krishna was taking rest under the shade of Kalpa tree. The fowler mistook his pink foot to be that of a deer and pierced it with his arrow. When the fowler arrived at the spot he found Sri Krishna in an injured condition. The fowler regretted his action and begged for Sri Krishna's pardon. Sri Krishna consoled the fowler by saying that he had committed no crime. Meanwhile, Daruk arrived there on his chariot. Sri Krishna instructed Daruk to call Arjuna as soon as possible. Arjuna arrived at the site within a short time. Sri Krishna told Arjuna, the time for my final departure has arrived. Please call all my 8 queen consorts. Arjuna rushed towards Dwarka to summon the queens, but Sri Krishna had already left for his heavenly abode before he could come back with the queens. Arjuna informed the queens about Sri Krishna's injury. In a short time the news spread like a wildfire, and all the residents of Dwarka rushed towards the site of incident. After reaching there, the 8 queens of Krishna found that their beloved husband had already departed. All of them gave up their lives and united with Sri Krishna. The great Yadvas like Vasudev, Ugrasena and Akrura followed suit. Balram could not bear the sorrow caused by Sri Krishna's separation and he gave up his life. His wife Revati entered the burning pyre with her husband's body in her lap. Similarly, all the rest of Sri Krishna's family members like Rukmi's daughter, Pradyumna, Usha and Aniruddha left for heavenly abode. Arjuna performed the last rite of all the dead Yadvas. Eventually, Dwarka got submerged into the ocean. Thus, Sri Krishna, after having liberated the earth from all the sinners, left his mortal body. After completing his story, Lord Mahadev told Parvati that Sri Krishna takes incarnation whenever there is predominance of sin or sinners. He also revealed to her that Sri Krishna would incarnate as Kalki at the fag end of Kali Yuga to liquidate the Mlechas. Rituals of Vishnu worship. Describing about the rituals connected with the worship of Lord Vishnu, Lord Mahadev told Parvati a devotee can worship Lord Vishnu by making his idol. This mode of worship is known as Stapita, installation of an idol. There are also some sacred places related with Lord Vishnu which are called Swayamvyakta, self-manifested, like Indradyumna Sarovar, Kurmastan, Kashi, Prayag, Dwarka, Namishranya, Mathura etc. In all these holy places, Lord Vishnu had manifested himself. A devotee should get up early in the morning and perform Achaman. He should then chant the holy name of Lord Vishnu. He should take his bath and sit down to worship Lord Vishnu. A devotee should install idols of Lakshmi Narayana on a beautiful pedestal and adorn it with flowers. He should then make offerings of various articles like akshat, fruits, flowers, etc. to the deity. While worshipping, it is most necessary that a devotee follows the rituals as mentioned in the ancient scriptures like Shruti, Smriti, Vedas, etc. He should chant the shlokas of Purusha Sukta as well as the cryptic mantra for the accomplishment of Sholashopchar. He should light a ghee lamp and make offerings of articles like camphor and betel leaves to Lord Vishnu. While making offerings in the sacrificial fire, chanting of a shloka either from Purusha Sukta or Shri Sukta is mandatory. There are some specific days which are considered to be specially auspicious for the worship of Lord Vishnu: Amvasya, Saturday, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, etc. Lord Vishnu, the Almighty God, describing about the superiority of Lord Vishnu among the Trinity gods, sage Vasishtha narrated the following tale. During ancient times, Swayambhuva Manu had once gone to Mandarachal mountain to perform a yagya. Many scholars and learned men had come to attend that yagya. Very soon, they got into a debate as to who was the supreme among all the deities. Some of them eulogized the greatness of Brahma, while some said that Lord Shiva was the greatest of all the deities. Failing to come to any conclusion, all of them requested sage Bhrigu to find out as to who was the greatest among the Trinity gods. Sage Bhrigu went to meet Lord Shiva at Kailash mountain. He saw Nandi standing guard at the main entrance. Sage Bhrigu arrogantly ordered Nandi to inform Lord Shiva of his arrival. Nandi refused to comply with Bhrigu's command. Sage Bhrigu cursed Lord Shiva by saying, "Your master Shiva would bear the consequences of showing disrespect to me. From today onwards people would make offerings of forbidden articles to him." Sage Bhrigu then went to meet Lord Brahma. After reaching Brahmaloka, he made salutations to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma also did not give any respect to Sage Bhrigu and neglected him. Sage Bhrigu became furious and cursed Lord Brahma, "Being intoxicated by your Rajoguna, you have shown disrespect to me. From today onwards people will not worship you." Sage Bhrigu then went to meet Lord Vishnu at his abode Kshayasagar. He did not have any problem in reaching the place where Lord Vishnu was taking rest on Sheshnag, engrossed in his Yoganidra. Goddess Lakshmi was pressing Vishnu's legs with total devotion. Sage Bhrigu kicked Lord Vishnu on his chest. Lord Vishnu woke up and seeing Sage Bhrigu said, "O great Brahman, your tender foot must have got hurt because of my chest, which is as hard as Vajra. How blessed I am to have been touched by a Brahman's foot." Lord Vishnu got up and eulogized Sage Bhrigu. This gesture of Lord Vishnu made Sage Bhrigu cry in joy. Now, he was convinced as to who was the supreme among all the three deities. Sage Bhrigu returned to Mandarachal mountain where all the sages were anxiously waiting for him. He declared, "Lord Brahma is the possessor of Rajoguna, while Lord Shiva possesses Tamoguna. Only Lord Vishnu is the proud possessor of Satvaguna, and hence he is the supreme among all three of them." After finishing his tale, Sage Vasishtha told the sages that anybody who worships Lord Vishnu with complete faith and total devotion become liberated from all his sins. A devotee of Lord Vishnu attains to Vishnu Loka after his death. Parshurama describing Lord Vishnu's incarnation as Parshurama. Lord Mahadev told Parvati sage Jamdagni came from the lineage of Bhrigu. He had pleased Indra by his tremendous penance and received Surabhi cow in return. In course of time he married the daughter of King Renuk, whose name was Renuka. A child was born to them, who was named Rama, by sage Bhrigu. The child was also known as Jamadagnya because of Jamdagni. After growing up, Rama became proficient in all the scriptures. He also mastered various weaponaries. One day, the king of Hyaya named Arjuna arrived at the hermitage of Jamdagni. Sage Jamdagni treated the king with due honor and respect. He presented numerous gifts to the king. Arjuna wanted nothing else but the Surgi cow from sage Jamdagni, which he was unwilling to part away with. Ultimately, Arjuna forcibly took away the divine cow. The cow was unwilling to go along with Arjuna and she attacked his army with her sharp horns. As a result, Arjuna's whole army was liquidated within no time. The revengeful Arjuna killed Jamdagni. At the time of this incident, Rama was not present in the hermitage. Rama wanted to avenge his father's death and did a tremendous penance to please Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu became pleased by his devotion and presented many divine weapons to him. The weapons included the famous axe Parshu and Vaishnav bow. After acquiring Parshu from Lord Vishnu, Rama became famous as Parshurama. He had vowed to kill all the Kshatriyas, which he did only. The clan of Ikshvaku was spared by him as he had promised his mother that he would not harm Ikshvaku and his clan. After freeing the earth from the terror of Kshatriyas, Parshurama performed an Ashwamedha Yagya and donated his whole kingdom to the Brahmins. He then went to do penance at the hermitage of Narayan. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.